Hello everyone, welcome back. Today I want to talk to you guys about what is a good weapon form for a fairly untrained fighter. Okay, and the idea here is that you just got into this for maybe about a month, and there's some type of event or tournament coming up this weekend, and you want to participate in it. So regardless whether it's a singles combat or a melee, you want to participate in it, and what would be a good weapon form for you to go in and be somewhat effective. Okay, and my answer to that is a shield and short spear. Now, obviously, this is a sword, but we're going to be using this primarily as a short spear. And the reason I say this is over the 15 years that I've been fighting, okay, and haven't seen a lot of new fighters come into the game. What I find is that most new fighters will resort to a thrusting action. Now, it is true that swinging, a club or a stick tends to be a lot more instinctive, but you're swinging it against somebody that knows how to block. Okay, and with a sword, what's going to happen is as you're swinging it, most new fighters are not using good body mechanics. So they're not using their hips. They're not putting their body into the shots. What they're doing is they're arming the shots. Okay, so what they're going to do is they're going to arm the shot. They're going to throw a couple of shots, and then the arm's going to start getting tired. Okay, and then what they're going to start doing is they're going to start thrusting. Okay, so that's usually where new fighters end up. Okay, that's where they usually go, and I've seen this happen like time and time and time again. So that's a good place to start. Okay. Um, Now we can with the sword we do have the option of throwing a couple of cuts. Okay, so we can go in, right. Let's say we're matching up. We can go in. They're not going to be able to. New fighters are not going to be able to throw that high horizontal Zwerchhau, right? They're not going to be able to throw these high shots that get around the shield. So they're going to probably throw a diagonal Zornhau that's going to basically just hit shield. And then what we can do is we can use that to basically just pull back and thrust through. So you can make your diagonal Zornhau and then thrust through into an opening. Okay, so this is the most basic thing that most untrained fighters will do. When I fight new fighters, occasionally when they do get a kill shot at me, okay, it's usually a thrust. Okay, so that thrust is very effective. See, the thing with the thrust is that because it's coming straight in, you really it's a little hard to see it coming. So there's a visual issue with that. And the thing is, when people usually throw a cut, like when I throw a cut, it's tight, right? So it's coming in tight and efficiently like that. When new fighters throw a cut, it's usually wide, right? It's usually coming in wide like that, so you can see it coming a mile away. So they usually, those cuts will be seen coming. Now the interesting thing is when I see somebody throwing a wide cut, in my mind I'm like, oh, okay, this is a newbie. All right, block it. It usually, what that does is it kind of makes me a little bit complacent because they throw these wide cuts, right, where I'm like, okay, block, 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 and then they pull back and they just throw a thrust, and that will get in because those wide, slow cuts, had me very complacent, and then all of a sudden they throw a quick thrust at me and it's like, oh shit, you got me. Okay, so that a thrust, with the a thrust from a sword with a shield combination, that's very effective. I've seen new fighters use that time and time again. And we're talking about fairly new people here. So now the question becomes, if we're going to be fighting shield and short spear, right, where we're trying to spear people, why not use a full-size spear? Okay, and the answer is because basically with the shield, basically 80% of our body is covered. When I switch to a spear, basically 99.9% of my body is not covered. Okay, let me put this down. So now I've got a 9-foot spear. Okay, now if I'm matching up against another shieldman, right? Now obviously you're going to want to start further back, right? So if I'm matching up against another shieldman back here, what's going to happen is that shieldman is going to basically take that, block that first thrust, and then he's going to rush in on me. And I did a prior video on this. That tip can only move back and forth about 2.5 to 3 feet You know, with the step, I can move it forward. I can double that. So at most, this is moving back and forth about 6 feet. You know, somewhere between 5 and 6 feet. And so, you know, when I retract this, that's as far back as my tip will go. And so once they get inside that tip, if they got a shield, I'm pretty much toast. Okay. And especially a new fighter, they're not going to be able to back up quickly enough. I mean, there are a couple of options that we have, you know, backing up and shortening the weapon up, but that a new fighter is not going to be able to utilize, because even myself, you know, trying to utilize that against somebody that really knows how to close in fast, it's really tough. Now, how about if we're fighting spear against another spear? Okay, so now we're spear dueling. So now this becomes a you know, it's basically a pretty advanced game, because what we're trying to do here is, when we're doing a spear duel, I'm trying to catch their tip on my strong, gain leverage, push to the side, and thrust through. Okay, and that is basically the same as rapier fighting. Okay, if I put this down, if I'm fighting with the shorter rapier, I'm basically fighting a thrusting style where I'm trying to catch somebody's tip over here, push it to the side, and thrust through. All right, I'll catch the tip here, push it to the side, and thrust through. So a good way to get good at spear fighting is learn how to fence with a rapier. Okay, and that's, you know, because a lot of times if you go to a lot of these, if you go to a HEMA club, right, there may not be anybody there that really knows how to use a spear, but there's a good chance you'll find somebody there that knows how to use a rapier and that can train you with the rapier. So if you get good with the rapier, everything that you learn with the rapier will transfer over to the longer spear, you know, very easily. Okay, it's basically the same thing. It's just a difference of where my tip is. Okay, here my tip is, you know, whatever, about 4 feet, 5 feet, you know, in front of my body. Okay, sort of 3 feet from the hilt forward. So it's a question of where my tip is. Whereas with the spear, I'm doing exactly the same thing, except that tip now is whatever that is, about 6-7 feet in front of me. Okay, but other than that, it's all the same concepts of trying to catch the other person's tip on your strong, push it to the side, and thrust through, and then you have the same idea of, you know, distance and timing. All that will carry over. Okay, so so let's put this aside and let's talk about some other options. How about a short two-handed sword, right, like the longsword? And this is very popular with a lot of people. They want to become great longsword fighters. Basically, what this is a very short spear, and you don't have the added defense of the shield. And if you match up against another shieldman, what they're going to do is they're going to come in, they're going to put their shield on your hands here so that you cannot swing the sword. And while they're stuffing your shot, while they're compressing the sword against your body, they're going to kill you with their weapon, right? Because they have two weapons. They have a shield and they have a sword, so they're going to press their shield on your weapon while they are killing you with their sword. Okay, so this is not a very good choice to take out against a shieldman. And if you're gonna match, and obviously if you're gonna match up against a spearman, he's gonna toast you, because basically he's gonna kill you before you get anywhere near him. And you both pretty much have the same defense, right? You know, you both have something very thin to block your bodies. So the defense is the same, but the spearman's going to have added offense of being some 8-9 feet away from you. Okay, so this is not a really good choice. And if you're fighting against somebody that has an equal weapon, right, two-handed sword against another two-handed sword, well, basically, you know, skill is a big factor. Okay, an untrained fighter with this against a skilled, you know, somebody that's somewhat skilled, is at a significant disadvantage. So this is definitely not the place to start. Okay, let's put this down. And we'll talk about either, you know, a mass weapon, like a mass weapon and shield. So this is a hammer, but it could be just as well be an axe. It could be a mace. It could be anything that's got, you know, any type of a mass weapon. And again, what this is, it's got more weight at that tip. And what I find is with these mass weapons, most beginners are not going to be able to use their body to generate power. So they're just going to be arming the shots. And what's going to happen is they're going to take 1 or 2 shots with this, and then the arm's going to turn into jelly. And they don't have a thrusting tip on this, so they can't really thrust with this. So basically they're left without an effective weapon. A single-handed mass weapon is not a good choice for a beginner. So the best choice would be a sword. Put this down. Going back to the sword, the sword basically it has, which is especially one that's tapered, the tip is light. So even if you're using, bad body mechanics, right? Because we're talking about a beginner here, because that tip is light, you can thrust this back and forth while you're safely behind your shield. Okay, the main thing for beginners is don't drop the shield, because usually if I'm fighting against a brand new shieldman, what I'll usually do is when I get into range, I'll let them throw a couple of shots at me, and what happens is as they're throwing shots, every time they throw a shot, their shield's going to come lower and lower. So as soon as that corner comes down, basically I'm just going to throw a Zwerchhau that's going to just come over the top of the shield, go straight to the head, and kill them. All right. So basically you got to basically fight to keep that corner up while you're throwing your thrusts back and forth. Okay. And don't be afraid to throw a couple of cuts in there just to distract them. Okay, and like I said, most likely if you're a beginner, most of your cuts are going to be diagonal because you haven't practiced throwing them horizontal yet. So you're throwing these diagonal cuts, which is gonna kind of tell the other person that you're a beginner. Because if I have a shield like this and somebody's throwing diagonal cuts into my shield that have no chance of ever hitting me, okay, I know that they're a beginner. Okay, if I see this, if I see that, I know I'm fighting somebody that knows how to fight. If I start seeing diagonal cuts, I know that I'm fighting a beginner. And what sometimes happens is when I see those diagonal cuts, I sometimes get a little complacent. When I get complacent, I forget that they're also capable of throwing a thrust, and a lot of times they'll kill me with that thrust. Okay, so that's a that can work pretty good for a beginner. So that's a couple things for you guys to think about. If you guys have any questions, comments, anything you want to add, please do so in the comment section. If you like the video, give it a thumbs up. And if you're not a member of the channel, subscribe. I'll see you guys next time.